wrong, it ain't all bad. I love the crazy fads, like England always buggering up, but you know we're gonna win the World Cup. I'm gonna start the old nation, with myself for reservation. I'm gonna start the old nation, with myself for reservation.
And welcome everybody. I don't know how smooth it is at your end, but there's a fair amount of chaos going backstage here. And welcome to the 37th edition. 37 symbolizes exploration, introspection, creativity, independence, self-determination, and self-expression. And it's perhaps appropriate on the weekend, just after the weekend of sort of International Women's Day, and sort of that we should have a title which says, what does it say, Paul, that we've got as our title today?
I believe it says Women in Trade Unions celebrating something. So that's great. Yeah,
that's brilliant.
I'm doing a fantastic job today. I'm very, very proud of myself and all the things that I'm messing up. It is quite a spectacular feat. We've also managed to mess up, like Facebook went off for some reason. I have no idea why, but it did. And now people are coming back in again. So it's all a little bit odd. But, you know.
Gremlins are trying to destroy the impact of women on this program, but we have women and we have 3 trade unionists, so God bless you. The title fits. We're here today. Welcome Heather Swallow. God bless you. She says hello, dream team, and sort of we have a new member for our dream team. Just very, very quickly. Now I'm going to warn you before this, because everybody who listens to this show knows that I find the Irish accent particularly sonorous. I get into awful trouble off Samantha, who says it's a very rude and personal thing to say. Sort of, I just can't see that. Sort of, it's but hello, sort of now. Hello, Tina.
Hello, how are you?
There we go. I never said a damn word, Samantha. Never said a damn word. You're so welcome. Tina's standing in for Laura today. Tina, tell us something about yourself. Tell us who you are.
Oh, well, I could be here all night telling you who I am. It's what you really want to hear, though. I think the most recent thing I did, shall I say, was I was a PPC, stood as a candidate for the Labour Party in the last general election in Colchester. So that's enough of my story anyway. I don't think people need to hear any more of that. So happy to carry on.
So I had no idea you were so important. Sort of, I take it that you lost. Was it sort of a bit of a Hail Mary where you were standing, or was it a close run thing? How did it go?
You know, like a lot of the seats, I think Brexit and the sort of swivel that we did on the policy made a huge impact there. So it was a very heavy Leave supporting seat and a very sort of no deal supporting seat. So once we kind of did the backtrack on the policy, it was pretty much game over, but it was good fun, a good experience.
A learning. And are you going to have another go next time? I mean, or has this just sort of destroyed your parliamentary hopes?
Oh, I think that's another conversation for another time, considering the state of the Labour Party at the moment. But, you know, I'm a big believer in
never here in 2024. Well. That's it. Anyway, thank you so much for being here and joining us. And sort of, I shall be terrified of you all night now. I didn't know you were important as all that. To the rest of the team, Paul, welcome. Hello.
Hello.
Paul's very stressed tonight because everything's going wrong. So you can just enjoy watching the look on his face as he wrangles with the technology. Stuart, so lovely to see you.
How are you doing?
And finally, Samantha.
Hello. I used to live in Colchester because
really?
I went to the University of Essex.
I went to the University of Sunderland, so
Well,
not
there
too
we
far
go.
away.
A veritable reunion. And sort of the other exciting thing that I've got to tell you today, everybody, is that the jingles aren't working. So I can sing the jingle. At the very beginning, Tina, we had no technology at all. And so I just sang the jingles, and it was very silly. But now we come to the moment of the week. And I'm going to leave you to the last one, Tina. Paul, what was your moment of the week?
My moment of the week, I was going to go for one thing, but I've changed it. My moment of the week is that the BBC have referred itself to some sort of complaints commission, because when Emily Maitlis made that statement about Dominic Cummings when she was on Newsnight, and she said he's broken the rules and stuff. So the BBC referred itself to this big thing and Ofcom or something like that, and Ofcom have found them not guilty because Emily Maitlis was allowed to basically say what she wanted to say. And as it turned out, there were a total of 5 complaints that were put in to inspire the BBC to do this. 2 were complaints about what she said, and 3 were complaints about the fact that what she said was fine and the BBC shouldn't have referred itself. Contrast that with when Jeremy Corbyn had a Russian hat on, and there were thousands of complaints went in. The BBC wouldn't disclose it, but said, we've done nothing wrong, we're fine, we didn't alter his hat that much to make him look that much more Russian, and he shouldn't be a big commie anyway. So, that is the state of our media at the moment. That is the state of our national broadcaster, referring themselves to a commission because they said the truth about Dominic Cummings, but like when they actually do something genuinely wrong, they deny it. So, go BBC.
I've stopped watching the BBC news, sort of to tell you the truth. It just churns my stomach. Stuart, moment of your week.
I've been selected once again for my home seat of Chiltern for the county council elections. So, showing you how complicated the whole process is of getting selected when issues arise and things have to change. There's quite a process to go through, and we finally managed it, and I'm now very proud to be standing for my home village.
The inertia in the system is horrific. Have you got your campaign already and gearing up, sort of?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Starting fires already.
Are you knocking doors, Stuart? Are you going to be knocking doors?
I don't think so. I don't think I'll risk anyone with that one. I suspect I'll be leaflet.
Are you going to be delivering leaflets?
I think so, yeah.
If you need any help delivering leaflets, give us a call.
Thank you.
Stuart came round and helped me lid picking my ward on a number of occasions, didn't you? So there's a great kind of support between Chiltern Labour and Newton Aycliffe Labour. So thank you very much. All the very best. You'll be a brilliant candidate, and God bless. Samantha T.
Lots of support for Stuart in the comments. Tim, Laura, and Leanne all being very excited about Stuart being selected, and I just want to personally thank him actually for not being a dick about all women shortlists, because every other man who's had to do this dance that I know of has ended up just saying some really stupid things about all women shortlists in the process, and Stuart's been very comradely in the way that he has dealt with this situation, and the fact that all women shortlists made his journey a bit more difficult than it perhaps needed to be. So thank you. My moment of the week is, of course, finally number one is in Shildon. Absolutely. Now I hear that Deanna Davison personally threw the call in and drove it herself. That is, of course, not true. She turned up a week before it was due to move, made sure she got a photo up with me, and then made sure she did not give me any credit at all, didn't even mention my name in the Facebook post, or the fact that I was an elected councillor. I am a campaigner. So bit of an interesting situation going on. I'm really glad Locomotion number 1 is home in Shildon. I'm really glad that some of the residents are giving me some of the praise that I do rightly, I should get, just for the work that I have put in to supporting the museum. At the end of the day, I didn't drive the vehicle here myself. I did not do anything physically to give the museum the money to move it, but I gave them the moral support so that hopefully I help them stand firm against some horrific abuse from Darlington. And the residents seem to be really happy, and I've had some lovely messages. I had an actual phone call from an actual person and several emails, and somebody is commenting on the Northern Echo website speaking positively about me. It's a new experience for me, getting positive comments. So I'm soaking it up. I'm going to stick them all in a book, and I'm going to look at it when I'm sad.
I have a suspicion about who that is, actually.
Okay.
I suspect someone. I'm not going to say a thing. But
Okay.
I'll say it privately later on who I suspect it is. It's your biggest
Tim
fan.
says we've all got to sing "Do the Locomotion."
Yeah.
Oh God.
I told you it's my chance to sing tonight. Samantha, here's a question for you. When locomotion number 1 first arrived in Aycliffe, actually, not Sheldon, how did it arrive?
Oh gosh, was it pulled by horses?
Yes, it was on a wagon pulled by horses.
Well done.
What were the horses' names?
Dasher and Prancer and
Kevin, Steve, Boris,
Rudolph.
Dehenna was one of the horses as well.
Don't.
You're getting into trouble for that statement. It came down from Newcastle, and the reason it got put on at Harrington Lane was because that was where the A1 got closest to the Stockton and Darlington line.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Right.
And then did they steam it to Shildon, and then the passengers got on?
No, I mean, this was a few days before they got it lit. I'm so sorry, Tina. You see our big moment coming. We're talking about the Stockton Darlington. Remember, it was like an IKEA package. It was kit. They put it all together and assembled it, and sort of got the big spanner and screwed it up. And sort of then they had to test it. And of course they had the coal, but they couldn't set fire to the coal. Nobody had a light, no matches. So they sent the boy to the local pub, which was presumably the county, and asked him to get and he never came back. We can guess why. So the engineer had a trick to light his pipe, because he had a magnifying glass, and he used to light his pipe with a magnifying glass. So what he did, and it was a sunny day, he lit the first time with a magnifying glass, and they got it going, and they tested it up and down the line for a few days, and then it went to its home in Shildon, where it stayed for its entire working life in the Soho Works, chucking up and down that station and back home. And I've got to be very careful about this, because we have to work together as authorities to the whole line. I'm so glad that a deal's been worked out on that. And finally, to our guest, moment of the week, Tina.
Oh, this one actually had me. There was quite a few that I could have chosen, and I feel like I'm really boring now after that lovely conversation there. But to bookend it, as Paul started with the BBC, I'll end with the BBC. And this was something that I think I didn't see it live, because like yourself, John, I don't really watch BBC News anymore, but I saw this on Twitter, and it kind of nearly fell off my chair whenever I saw it, because I thought, is this a parody, or, is this actually something that's on the BBC News? And it was an explanation of the debt that had been accrued during the pandemic. And it was an explanation of the government debt, how they'd accrued this money, and basically that austerity is a complete and utter myth. And the money has been obviously printed by the Bank of England, which is obviously supposedly independent, but is an extension of the government. So it's quantitative easing, really. They've printed the money, and we don't really necessarily have to pay this back or straight away, because this is money that the government technically owes itself. And if you owe yourself money, well, you're not going to kind of cut money from your budget to spend to go, oh, well, I owe myself some money, so I'm not going to buy food this week, you know. But yeah, it was like this is, you know, it's come up a couple of times. I know that Yanis Varoufakis, for all his faults, has explained how an economy works, how the budget works on Question Time, I think a few years before I stopped watching that as well. But you don't often see this in the sort of the mainstream. You know, we hear all the time about Thatcher's kind of ideology of, you know, the economy runs like a household budget, and, you know, you can only spend what you bring in. And this has been the mantra for so long. So all of a sudden, you know, to hear the BBC reveal this almost like it was breaking news, you know, something that they've known for decades, you know, but it still took me by surprise. And it was like, God, I wasn't expecting that from the BBC. Not sure whether we'll hear it again or whether we'll hear it explained in more detail. But, you know, yeah, it was certainly a bit of a moment of the week whenever I heard that. But yeah, if you can find that clip, just hold on to it just in case that clip disappears and you never see it again. But yeah, certainly a good moment of the week.
It was a smashing moment of the week, and one that we need to sort of retweet again and again and again. Thank you so much because if necessary, we could just write it off as bad debt and it'll disappear. We won't even have it. And I don't know, you probably know me this more, but is it 2/3 of our national debt is owed to ourselves anyway?
I think, oh no, I think it's slightly less than that. I don't want to give the figure on that. I know that of the pandemic debt, the money that was borrowed last year, 92% was from the Bank of England. So, you know, it's yeah. So whenever Rishi, you know, I know we're going to talk about the budget a bit later on, but, you know, when he's going on about, oh, this need to pay back the debt, well, you know, he's just talking absolute bullshit. Oh, sorry.
No, okay. He's not, however, the second half, when we're more open. Thank you so much. 4 brilliant moments of the week. God bless you. But now it's time for the big story. And so it's much better when I do it, Tina. I tell you, so people liked it much more. The big story today is the budget, and with its sort of the little sort of fallout spin-offs, which actually sort of 2% of the speech, the budget speech, was about Teesside and Middlesbrough, and you just think, wow, fame at last. The sort of and he didn't sort of think that it was south of Nottingham. So Sam, tell us about the budget, tell us what you think of it, and then we'll see what everybody else has to say about it, what you said.
Yeah, I mean, but wasn't the budget all a very big way of saying we're not going to do anything really scary right now, but wait till next time? Like that was the tone of the whole thing, wasn't it? It's like we've got, like Tina says, we're getting all of this debt, and ooh, if the interest rate changes, we're going to be in real trouble, and that's total rubbish because it's loaned to us by the Bank of England, who are us, and they do not have any interest in making us have to pay back billions of pounds, and they can stop that from happening. Yeah, and this weird thing where this budget has basically been an election launch for Ben Houchen and the Tees Valley Mayor. So Darlington is getting the Treasury campus, and Darlington's getting the free port, and there's this whole thing about the free port that it's a Brexit thing. It's nothing to do with Brexit. We had free ports before. They were scrapped because they didn't work. They didn't create jobs. They moved jobs and centralized them around the free port, and they became like a really easy way to smuggle things in and out of the country. So actually, is this what we want? It sounds like a big white elephant. It's not going to solve the problems for the people in Teesside. What would help solve the problems for the people of Teesside is investing in public transport so they can actually get the bus to work. And really basic stuff like that. In the end, their mayor's spending so much taxpayer money on an airport during a pandemic. when you can't fly anywhere. It's just such a ridiculous waste of money. And I feel so much for the people of the Tees Valley because, of course, it's nice to have an airport. But, it's basically an airport that mostly serves domestic travel. And is that an area that we want to grow to, improve our green economy? I don't think we want more planes to Bristol. We want buses to Middlesbrough, please. And the thing about the Treasury, yes, great. It's great to have government jobs in the north. Yes, brilliant. But for the first lot of jobs, are they jobs that are just being relocated from London, or are they going to be jobs for people from Darlington? That's the question on the people of Darlington's lips at the moment. Starts off being, 700 new jobs. Actually, if you look at the figures, Darlington has lost about 7,000 civil servant jobs over the last 10 years. So it's not great in terms of that there's about 700 jobs locally being cut from the HMRC recently in that area. So not really being given a whole lot, and perhaps being given even less if these are just people mostly relocating from London. And yes, of course, it makes sense to put the Treasury on the main train route, but also, are we making it easy for people to get here or easy for people to escape? We don't want all of the money and all of those people just living elsewhere. We want that money spent in Darlington, of course. So there's loads of questions yet to be asked. It's not a silver bullet by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, there is an election for the Tees Valley Mayor coming up, and I very much hope people will vote for Jessie Jo Jacobs over Ben Houchin for some actual transformative politics and not just gesture politics, shiny things all over the place.
Thank you. Just very briefly, Janet Matthews saying that the Financial Times said it was an election pitch for the Mayor of Teesside. Stephen Humphrey. I need you to explain some great things coming out of the budget, which made me think that you saw some good in the budget, which we would have loved to explore. But then you said NHS getting shat on once again, which made me think that the first statement was sarcastic. So could you just, if you exemplify, and talk a bit more about what you mean, we'll take your ideas there, and we'll discuss them. Thank you very much indeed. Sort of various other things coming out. Tim Dredge, there's something. It's a night for rude words. 130 million spaffed on the airport. He says there's a lot of support for your airport. Freeports. I have things to say about Freeports myself, but I'm the chair. I'm the host, so I can't. But sort of there we go. So an awful lot of comments. Thank you very much for your comments. People, keep them coming in. We'll comment on a very local view from Sam there. Tina, looking at the budget as a national budget, sort of what was your opinion of it? I mean, did you see any good in it? I mean, people did see good in it.
No, I think anything that people see good from it is usually the spin or something that sounds like it's good, and then you start to peel away the layers, after you get a chance to really have a look at it, and you can see that, well, we know firsthand as well that it's a Tory budget. It's never going to be good for us. It's never going to be good for ordinary people. It's never going to be good for working class. Never going to be good for small businesses, as much as they try to claim to be. And for me, it was quite clear that what this budget was there's local elections coming up in May. They know that Labour are absolutely, crumbling to bits under Keir Starmer. This was a full-on attack. This was, how can we get as many seats in the local elections? But also they put off things like the rise in corporation tax. That's delayed for 2 years. So they're going to call an election before they have to raise those taxes. This is what it's about. It's about the short term is the elections in May. The long term is that they're going to, call an early election, and they're not going to have to enact some of the things that they've pushed back on this budget. But it was an attack on ordinary people. You look at income tax, you look at, all the things to do with, you know, education, the NHS. It's an attack on ordinary people's lives, but it's always packaged in such a way that sounds good. And, you know, it's always the case of, oh, but, you know, we've done so much, we gave so much in the pandemic, and, you know, we've got to pay this back. But there's no acknowledgement of the fact that, you know, they didn't look after everybody in the pandemic. You know, there are still, you know, we very rarely hear anybody, including on the opposition bench, talking about the 3 million people that got nothing during the pandemic, and, you know, the cuts, you know, what I mean, having to fight for an extra £20 on universal credit, which is extended, you know, for a certain length of time. You know, all these things are, you know, they give you on one hand a little short-term fix, but they take massively with everything else. And I think, you know, the Rishi Sunak is someone who is, you know, he's someone that's angling for the top job. So, you know, everything that he delivers is in such a way, it's a PR machine. You know, we know what's going on. I think anybody that expects anything good from a Tory chancellor, well, you know, I'm going to be very polite and say nothing, but, you know, I don't think they're certainly not the party of the working people, that's for sure, and anybody else as well.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your comment, Tina, by the way. Sort of every word you said, I was cheering on. Yes, 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 absolutely. It's all like that little girl on the Albeck was just a sleight of hand, isn't it? Lovely comments on the things, sort of good things coming out of it locally, but why didn't the NHS, we're going to be talking about the pay rise later, the budget didn't touch the climate or the environment, basically.
Why would it? Why would it?
No substance. And Laura, who you should be doing your job application, Laura. That's why Tina's here. Turn it off. Start working. Laura says that anybody who says there's a similarity between that and the 2017 Labour manifesto hasn't read either the budget or the Labour manifesto. So, it's a put down and a half. Paul, what did you think of the budget? Have you got any wise comments for us?
I'm just going to disagree with my wife very slightly. So like it nicked some of the language, didn't it? It nicked some of the language from the Labour Party manifesto. So I think we should be calling them raging commies, because that's what we got called at the time for this really moderate social democratic manifesto that apparently was this kind of crazy. So why aren't they superimposing a Russian hat onto Rishi Sunak? I'm really worried my impression of Rishi Sunak will come out again tonight, so I'm gonna have to be calm. But yeah, it's just absolutely nonsensical. You know, they've said these things in the budget, and it is all about PR and spin. When you dig down into the detail of what is actually happening, they aren't giving very many people very much at all. Moving the Treasury, it does appear from the language they're using that it is just going to be existing people forced to move house. So it's well, if you work at the Treasury, you live in Darlington now. And it's right, okay. So that's what it appears to be, but things may change. I really don't know. We can't second guess anything. Oh, Rochelle wants me to do my impression, but maybe later, maybe in the second half. And I didn't know I did one.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, Paul. I'm going to interrupt you. You're going to have to give way to me. Because Stephen Humphries, was it Jake Ratcliffe saying I went teacher mode when I was telling your wife off, but sort of you went teacher mode then. That was real teacher mode. So if you're very good at listening, and you behave yourself, it says, I'll do my impression at the end of the lesson.
I'll do it at the end.
100% teacher. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, I can't remember what I was going to say. So yeah, it basically it's just been it's a spin. It's a spin budget, isn't it? It's trying to say we are for you, we are for that, but it's more beneficial to the Tory areas than it is to Labour areas, and that's really, really important. And I think it's been mentioned in the comments about the free ports. The free ports didn't appear in Tyne and Wear. They didn't appear in anywhere else in the country, but they did appear in where there's an election coming up, and I think that's really important. And you know, these people who keep on, they kept on accusing everyone of playing politics. You're oh, Grenfell, you know, when you politics made loads of people die in a fire. Well, don't play politics with that because it's not political, even though everything's political. But then they will play politics with every little thing, and they really do play. They don't like have a, they have no real passion about anything. They're just like, how can this work out for us? And I worry that that's like a direction that all of politics is going in. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what your convictions are. We'll just say things, and we'll say what you want to hear, and then we'll just do something else, and everyone will trot along with their lives because they're too busy to pay attention. So that's what I think it was all about.
Stuart, the budget. If we can talk about the budget, it would be really good. Can it sort of the budget? Any comments?
Yeah, obviously I work with Unite Community to try and secure that universal credit uplift, and that's been given an extra 6 months. So, you know, the cliff edge has just moved a little bit further away. And when you kind of get into the budget, there's lots of these little cliff edges where there's just going to be that's it, back to normal. You know, your life's going to have to pivot as if coronavirus didn't exist and change the world. And, you know, people are really hurting right now because of how the world's changed. I don't think we're going to come out of it and revert back to how we were in 2017, 2018. It's going to be a completely different world. And we need to kind of have budgets in place that don't give cliff edges. You know, even if you didn't support the idea of, you know, letting people afford to eat, you could at least taper it so it wasn't just, you know, drop off into nothing again.
I'm terrified about some of these cliff edges. Evictions is the one that scares me, Stuart. Just horrific. I've got 2 comments to make before I move on, and just very quickly, free ports. The worry about free ports is that what they do is they suck all the business out of the local hinterland, and sort of, and we need to worry like that. In Shildon and Newton Aycliffe and places like North Yorkshire, sort of, we need to make sure that it's absolute growth that happens in that free port, and that it's not sort of just moved business. And the second thing is that what strikes me about moving the Treasury to Darlington is you will remember in 2010, sort of, because the way that Labour, and it was short-termism, because what they did is they just moved government departments up here to give us jobs. They didn't create industry or any kind of economic base, New Labour. They just moved jobs up, and the government jobs. And of course, what happened in 2010, Cameron turns up and he says, we're putting far too much money into loads of money coming to the Northeast. I'm going to abolish all these jobs. And he just cancelled them. And sort of now they're pulling these 750 jobs out of the hat as though it's some miracle rabbit which is going to save the world. And when we have our own MP saying, oh, it's going to bring us such prestige. And the County Council, Tina, which you might not know, the County Council budget, which we declared the week before, which was a good deal more sensible, we're creating 30,000 jobs. Beat that. Anyway, I'm talking.
Can I just come back in with a comment about the budget? Because I think it's something that, you know, we haven't sort of raised tonight, and that's that, you know, all what's said and done, that, you know, that Rishi's kind of, you know, come up with this masterclass in PR, you know, and I think, you know, it's easy to start peeling away the layers, but what none of us have raised is the fact that Labour offered nothing in return. And I think that's what really shocked me most about this, was that there was nothing that came back to say, this is what we would do. And if you go back over the last 5 years, when you had John McDonnell, who offered an alternative, who challenged the very narrative that the Tories were able to set. And I can't tell you anything that Labour have said, no, this is what you should do, or this is our alternative. They haven't even criticised it, you know, that badly, you know, and my worry is that, you know, when we have a very right-wing government who, you know, have the sort of, they're creating problems, but obviously, you know, masquerading it in spin, that when we're offering no solution, when we're offering no alternative for the people, where do those people turn who are losing their homes, who are losing their jobs, who have no money coming in, who are choosing between, can I put the electric heater on tonight, or can I have, you know, some food in the morning? When we're offering no alternative and no place to go, where do those people go? They turn to the people, you know, who have the answers, or what seem to be the answers. They're not the answers. It's a populist, you know, scapegoating of who is the problem, but it doesn't offer you any solution. And this is where Labour, or this is what's really infuriated me, not so much the Tories, because I expected them to deliver that kind of budget. In fact, I expected them to deliver it even worse. But Labour have let everybody down because they haven't given in any way, this is what we would do if we were in power. It's just a case of, that wasn't good. And that's not good enough. People need to know who is there for them, because who is there for the ordinary person at the moment? This is the issue. It's dangerous.
You can come on again, Tina McKay.
Did you see Jeremy Corbyn's response to the budget through the Peace
He's
and
not
Justice
even a
campaign?
Labour MP at the moment. He's not even a Labour MP.
So he's he did it, and it was exactly what I wanted to hear. It said exactly. It was brilliant leadership. Probably a lot more so than when he was leader, to be honest. Like, it was really good, unless I just miss him.
To say it, though, didn't he? He had the freedom to say this is what we would do, and it's been proven that these are the answers. And you know, this is socialist think tank we're on here. We know what the answers are. We know what the solution is, but we just don't have anybody willing to stand up and fight for it. So we've got to do it ourselves.
But Tina, what we're doing is we're showing that we don't rock the boat that way. That sort of
I will have no truck with boat rocking.
Power and not change anything. That's our pitch at the moment. Right. Okay. Now. Okay. Sort of what we're going to do now. Sort of. Do you want to sing, Paul? I'll do the beat. I'll do.
You're okay. You're okay. I can't do it because it's all. Which means it's through a compression microphone, which makes me not sound like me. But I've heard it all before. There you go.
Okay,
that's as close as you're going to
get. Now
we
come to the other questions. God bless you all. By the way, I'm very upset that there aren't lots of praise of my singing on the chat. So you can just put that right now, please. And the sort of and we've got 20 minutes to do 3 questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the person just to comment and on it. And then for everybody else, people, if it's just sort of essential comments only, okay? And short. So, Tina, you want to talk about the 1% pay rise. Now, language, Tina. So you know what to talk about the 1% pay rise for nurses.
Well, you wanted me to mind my language. There's not much I'm going to be able to say. I'll behave myself. But you mightn't get, you know, there's 15 minutes here, you know, nobody else is going to get a chance to speak. The thing is that, you know, what do we say? I mean, this is just beyond ridiculous. And I think, you know, you have to consider why they would do this. These people aren't stupid, right? They know that the public is going to be very much against this, you know, measly pay rise. So why have they done it? Well, they've done it because they're trying to avoid, you know, scrutiny of something else. You know, while we're all distracted trying to argue over a really pathetic pay rise, you know, they're getting away with everything else. But I think the other thing is that what maybe people haven't considered is that this is attached to the long-term plan that the Conservatives have and that Labour support for the NHS, which is about basically the end of the National Health Service as we know. One of the biggest costs to the NHS is staffing. So if you can push some staff out, if you can demoralize, demotivate and get staff to leave, well, then your costs to fully privatize are going to be a lot less. So there is the overt plan that they've got here, which is, you know, that they just disregard the NHS staff. They don't value the staff. They don't value what they've done in a pandemic. Many people have risked their lives. They don't care about that, but that's a subsidiary to what their real goal is. And their real goal is about making sure that the NHS is more profitable to sell to the American healthcare providers. And if you look at the long-term plan that Jonathan Ashworth, our dear Shadow Chancellor, waved about on Andrew Marr on Sunday, he himself supports this. And he actually used this as a defense of, you know, the measly 2.1% raise that the Tories committed to in the long-term plan, both of which are absolutely disgraceful. So neither Labour nor the Tories look good here. But I think we do have to remember that while, yes, we do and should be really angry about this, and we should be wanting to campaign for a higher pay rise, we must also be mindful of what the real issue here is, and that's the demise of the NHS. And if you look at the long-term plan bill, if you look at this, which is due to come in next year to be legislated on, it's really, really scary. And I think people will be, you know, if you're distracted from that, you know, we've got a lot to worry about, but we do have a lot of campaigning to do on this.
We'll be on the ball there. Team comments. Anybody want to talk about this? Say anything about this?
I'll do a really, really quick one. We've just confirmed we've got a nurse coming on Socialist Night Live on Saturday night. We're going to talk about striking, and we did a poll this week on Socialist Think Tank, and it was very tongue-in-cheek. So it said, would you show solidarity to nurses if they chose to go on strike? And the choices were yes, solidarity forever, or no, let them eat claps. And there was a right-wing group that got hold of it, and they were all voting no, let them eat claps. Imagine what kind of person would go on a poll. Like, the idea was we wanted to create a biased poll, because who else, what do you want to do? Show solidarity to nurses or not? Like, what do you want to do? Is that, you know, I think everyone wants to show nurses solidarity. If someone chooses to go on strike, it's not easy. It's so hard to do. It's like you've got to go through all these hoops, and your employer can lie to you and say, we're going to give you this one day, and say, we're going to give in to your demands, and then go, actually, we're not. And then you have to reballot. You know, this is not an easy process. And yet people are just like, oh God, no, I could never dream of such a thing. And it's really annoying. I hate it when people think strikes are just the easy option, because it is the last resort of desperate people. And the only people at fault for a strike are the employer.
Thank you. Sam, very briefly.
56% of Tory voters think that the government have got it wrong on this 1% pay for NHS staff. So they've definitely got it wrong. Hopefully we will see a U-turn.
I was disappointed on Question Time. Any answers? A whole load of people basically saying, so I've had it worse than them, sort of I haven't got any pay rise at all. And the idea of solidarity seems to have died. Final comment to Stuart on this.
I'm just sick of MPs, Tory MPs saying that we recognise how important nurses and social workers and teachers are, and then saying, well, we're going to do now about it, get back down the food bank staff.
Next question. Thank you very much. It's outrageous. I'm sorry. If you're not outraged by that, you're watching the wrong show. Paul Daly. Priti Patel reaches a £340,000 settlement with ex-Home Office Chief Philip Rutnam. Now, you're going to have to fill in a bit of the background on this before you start talking about what you think about it. Can you just explain it to us, Paul?
Okay, so a chief civil servant was accused Priti Patel of bullying. He's not the only one. There are quite a lot of civil servants saying that Priti Patel was going in and using bullying tactics in her role as Home Secretary. And a little bit of background on Priti Patel. Priti Patel is alleged to have tried to spend the foreign aid budget on Israel's military, which is why Theresa May had to sack her. So this is like that's if that's true, that's pretty close to treason, isn't it? That's like a pretty treasonous act to say that we're going to spend our money on a foreign military. But anyway, back to Priti Patel. Sorry, back to the issue at hand. So Priti Patel has been accused of using really, really bullying tactics, and anyone who's worked with someone like that knows what it's like to be bullied in a workplace. These unreasonable demands. I've worked in places where people have been in tears. I've worked in place where someone lost their life, took their own life because of bullying, because of a really unreasonable boss, and it's absolutely disgusting. But what they do is, rather than admit fault, they will, in these cases, they will use a lot of the time public money, because my profession's teaching, public money to shut people up. And I will, that happens all too often. So instead of admitting guilt publicly, what they'll do is they'll say, okay, well, there's a sum of money. You're not allowed to say I did that anymore. And in this case, that sum of money is £340,000 to pretend that Priti Patel is not a bully. So they've said, well, we've had no liability, but, paying £340,000 doesn't really say you're not guilty, does it? And court costs. So but it's okay for Priti Patel because she's a government minister, so she can take that out of the public budget. That budget could have been could have paid for, I don't know, 10 nurses for a year, or it could have paid for all sorts of different things, but instead it's paid to cover up her bullying. How disgraceful is that? How disgraceful is it? So she is not guilty of bullying because she had enough money, because she had access to the public purse to stop her being accused of bullying. That's it. This is disgusting. More lawsuits to follow. We'll be paying for it.
Thank you for those comments and for clarifying things for me that I just didn't know. God bless you, Paul. Stuart, a comment?
It's just sad that it's got to this point where, society won't just call out a bully for being a bully. This really should be getting, exposed and, at a level where Priti Patel has to walk away from the job. You couldn't get another job again, kind of stuff. You'd never be taken seriously if you were found to be this kind of bully in the workplace. But it's as if it's nothing. And what that does to the whole, conversation around bullying in the workplace is just disastrous.
It normalizes
Yeah.
a standard of probity in government, which is absolutely unacceptable. Whereas we just accept anything now from these people. Nobody bats an eyelid. Sam?
Well, the problem is she is a role model to our young Tory MPs, isn't it? Like my MP, Deanna, idolises her, comes out on social media to defend her. And that is, like, to some people, they look at her and they want to copy her. And that's the real concern. It's laying more worry for the future. I was in a cross-party thing, and I was working with a Conservative councillor, and she was all about this resilience. If you can show real resilience, you'll get on. And that's the difference between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, isn't it? Conservative Party want you to be tough as old boots, and if you're not tough, it's your fault. And the Labour Party want to look after you, hopefully, so that you don't have to be so resilient that you're not a human being anymore. So, that's what I worry about.
It's a harshness, isn't it? We have somebody posting inappropriate links. Can we just chuck them off and delete those posts? Is there somebody in a position to be able to do that, please? Please don't misuse the chat. I've also ignored the chat for such a long time because we're running out of time. Lovely discussion all the time. Priti Patel, last comment, Tina. Have you anything to add to what's been said?
I just think that for me, I've got this, I just don't understand why, if she is the perpetrator of bullying, which, is clearly the case, why does that money have to come out of the public funds? And I think maybe she'd be less likely to do some bullying if she had to pay for it out of her own pocket. But I think, it's not just, I think, for her, this seems to be, she's just callous. You only have to look at some of the stories that have come out, in relation to the work that she does. This isn't just a one-off. This is her. There's just a cruel streak, and I don't think it's anything to do with gender or anything to do with that. It's just she is a nasty person and has not been held to account. And I think this is something that we see across the whole cabinet, whether it's, Gavin Williamson, whether it's Matt Hancock, there's just none of them. every day I kind of ask myself, what do these people have to do before they get the sack? And I just, there's no, it just seems to get worse and worse and worse. And yeah, we're in a bad state.
Yeah, the Tories are higher. We sort of run out of time on this topic, but I'm going to ask you this, Tina. The Tories are higher in the polls. Is it 7 points ahead now? It seems that the nastier they are. I mean, somebody said last week, Stockholm syndrome. I mean, how can you explain that they are callous is the word? They don't give a tinkers about people like you and me, except to sort of strip us of our money, to sort of so that they can keep the taxes down to their rich friends and give big contracts. And sort of, why do you think people keep supporting them, praising them, defending themselves?
Because there's nobody criticizing them. The media aren't criticizing them. The opposition isn't criticizing them. There is nobody saying this is what these people are doing. And when we were trying to do that, what was the leader of the opposition saying? Now is not the time. Well, when is the time? When is the time that the leader of the opposition is going to stand there and call out the corruption, the bullying, the misappropriation of public funds, the crushing of ordinary people? If now isn't the time, when is? And that's why. So, and again, I'm stealing time. I'm stealing time from poor old Stuart. But sort of when we do this, what they come back at us and say, you are reducing the Labour Party to a party of protest. You're just protesting. You're not serious politicians. I mean, what's your answer to that argument? When we call these things out, do we diminish ourselves to a party of protest? What's your consideration? I think at the moment, yes, we do, because we aren't offering an alternative. But when we did have a credible leadership, which was, offering an alternative, that wasn't just a party of protest, because it was offering another alternative. It was offering solutions to the problems that not just the government that we're creating, but that are being created anyway due to, whether it's pandemic, whether it's due to financial crisis. We had solutions. Protest is whenever you're just protesting against something. That's what they do the odd time at the moment, where you hear a little bit of, oh, that's really bad. And then I think it was even, referring back to, Andrew Marr on Sunday, whenever Jonathan Ashworth was asked, well, what would you do, in this scenario? Oh, well, couldn't really offer anything. That's what protest is. I think you're wrong, but I don't have an answer to how we would do it better. You look at when Jeremy Corbyn was leader, how many U-turns he was able to force from the Theresa May's government, from Boris Johnson's government. That's actual opposition, when you're forcing your opponents to turn their agenda around. That's being an opposition, not being a scaffolding to something that's about to fall apart. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
Brilliant. Thank you. A scaffold. We are supporting the crumbling edifice. So that's a brilliant image. Last question. Though. Sorry?
Forensic, though.
Yes, absolutely. Spot on. Stuart, last question. And I'm not going to let these other three people talk. If you want to talk the full 4 minutes, divide and rule. Tories accused of levelling up stitch up over regional deprivation fund. Tell us what on earth that's about, and then give us your thoughts on it.
Well, apparently, money's been made available by the government to go to the most deprived areas in Britain, and it turns out that a big chunk of these most deprived areas are just Tory voting areas with the Tory MP. And when they've been questioned on what made these areas, targets for this money, the government couldn't provide any information on how they'd come to the conclusion that this money should go there. I think it was out of the top 45, 39 had Tory MPs. Some of the places that this money that is going to, for deprivation include areas that aren't even in the top 200 constituencies for worst levels of deprivation. So it's completely come back to that thing about the budget and Teesside, and it's about buying votes, isn't it? It's it's levelling up only where there's a Tory MP, not where we really need it, no matter, what the cost is. So.
Richmond, Stuart. That's a deprived constituency. Richmond. The constituency of Rishi Sunak.
I lived there.
There you go.
Is it deprived?
Is it hell?
It's about sort of it's way up the least deprived, but
and he's a useless MP as well. All he does is go to the opening of an envelope, for God's sake. He's terrible.
Right, everybody, that's the end of the show, apart from one thing. This is a yes or no answer. Stuart, Tina, Sam, you all answer yes or no. Paul is physically incapable of answering yes or no, so we just have to.
You got really annoyed when I started doing yes or no. You got really annoyed. You said we can't have you saying yes or no to these questions. You've got to elaborate.
Paul, you are just our expert on everything. We couldn't do without you. I'm just mocking you, that's all. Right, okay. It's a choice, people. Windsor or Sussex? Yeah, Windsor or Sussex? And I'm going to come to you, Paul, last. Stuart, Windsor or Sussex?
Oh, no, not having it. Go in. See ya.
Sam, Windsor. I'll tell you what, there'll be 41,000 complaints about that. Sam, Windsor or
Sussex, of course.
Hey, Sussex. My wife will love you, Sam. Tina, Windsor or Sussex?
Republic.
Now there's an answer. Thank you very much indeed. And Paul, it'll have to be a yes or no answer. We've run out of time. Windsor or Sussex?
People.
Explain.
Because I care about people. I don't care about like a family daft thing, like a daft little family argument. Like I care. I care that she's suffered racism. I care that that there's this ridiculous institution that will defend someone who is paedophile adjacent. But I, rather than defend a woman who's just having a baby, but I don't think this is important. I think it's important to call out racism, but I don't think this is relevant at all to any of our lives, and I don't think we should be paying for them. I think they should be privatised. I think they should have Castrol GTX on the back of the coat, like when they, or like on the back of the Queen's hat or something like that. She can have like a little sponsorship thing, and we can see who's paying for them. Because at the moment, it's the British public. So I want all of our names on the back of a hat instead. I'm a bit sick of the whole thing. It's very silly. They have a right to exist. They have an awful institution that they have to live within. But what an awful, awful institution it is. It's horrible for them. It's horrible for us. Don't do it. It's a very silly thing to do.
Thank you. I told you, didn't I, Tina? I told you. So
You asked me.
I suckered you into it. Okay. And that's the end of the show, people. What happens now. We play No Pass Around, or at least try to play No Pass Around. I'm going to go get myself a drink of water. Tina's going to get herself another beer. And we come back for a much more relaxed time when we all commit indiscretions, and Samantha is in charge of that. You'll be all delighted to know. If you have to leave us, please come back next week. Thank you for your comments, which are so appreciated. We're going to sort of pretend to look at in the next hour, and see you in 5 minutes. God bless you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you in a minute. 4 for the panel, because you won't be able to hear.
My name is Jack Atkins, and I'm not afraid. And I live and die by this vow that I've made. The only good fascist's a dead one, they say, and around the rear we are. When I first left all them months ago, I
Told him I'd come not to kill but to cure. For an ambulance driver my shot's pretty sure. Panorama we are. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. The fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here today. I told my mother, now mother, be strong, for the left way is right and the right way is wrong. And you can stick that on my grave when I'm gone, for I'm a real we are. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. The fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here today. Cast may be cast, and the cast may be cast, but you armies of darkness, you best do your worst. 'Cause to win, yeah, well, you gotta get past us first. And I'm a real we are. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. The fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here, no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. No pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. No pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. The fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here today.
Hard for me to be quiet, you know.
Brilliant timing that, Tina. Hard for me to be quiet. Yeah, we're back, John, and we're back, Samantha.
Woo!
Hi, everyone. Hello, Sam.
Oh, brilliant. He hasn't even given me an introduction to make me speak. That's great, because I am capable of speaking without
You
an
need no introduction.
I need no introduction. Yeah. Hello, everybody, and your fantastic comments. Tina was talking about people saying that we're not serious politicians. Jake says, no, we're not serious politicians. We walk around with uncombed hair and speak in 3-part slogans. Hang on. Like, we've talked about this before, haven't we, Paul? It's the Tories playing politics on easy mode. I don't know how they do it. They are so incompetent and so not credible as people that you would give responsible jobs to. Like, oh,
But people are
goodness
more
me.
likely people are more likely to criticize people who are close to them, aren't they? So like, if you think that the Labour Party are there supposedly representing you, and then you hear them going, well, actually, the important thing is to have nuclear weapons, and that's going to be what's important for our lives, and it's important that business is looked after, and if nurses go on strike. No one wants to see that. No one wants to see that. Don't be naughty. Don't be naughty. It's really not going to inspire people. And that's why there is more hatred in some quarters towards the Labour Party than there is the Conservatives, because they go, well, at least I think people just go, well, I think there's a little bit of cap doffing as well, but because they do think that, I think some people do accept that the Tories are their superiors when actually no one's their superior. Everyone should be equal. But I think that it is that closeness that people get angry about. We've seen it here.
Anne says she left the NHS because it was overworked and underpaid. Now, I had a discussion with Anne elsewhere today about unions. Somebody started a discussion about union membership and said, basically, like, my union's crap, so why should I join a union? Because my union is ineffective. And I made the point that then you should get more involved in your union and make it not crap. But the response was basically, no, they're still going to be rubbish. And then I tried to say, it's not just about strikes. Being in a union is a lot more than striking. So maybe, Paul, I mean, I'm sure you've got an opinion on this. What would you say to that?
You'd be surprised to hear, no, I don't have an opinion. No, I do. For me, the most important thing is to get involved with a union. We do need to change some attitudes around some things, because there is only action that, like the laws around trade unionism are so strict. They are so bad. And Blair did that. He made them worse. And then this Tory government made it worse. So it was the coalition government made it worse. They haven't had to make it any worse, but they will. But I think people need to get involved with the union. People need to understand the union. And if you don't want to go on strike, you don't have to. But you do have to understand that that is your ultimate power. So if you're going to give that weapon away, like, so I've heard of non-striking unions. There was one called Voice in teaching. And I thought it was the most, or ATL, before they merged with NEU, used to be a non-striking union. Now, how can you have a non-striking union? We shall give away all our power. What do you mean? Like, the only thing you have the power to do is withdraw your labour, especially if you're important. There's no point of you going on strike if you're a banker, because you will not change the world. Everything will tick along nicely. Everything will be fine. But if you work on the bins, go on strike, pandemonium. That's why they want to say, no, it's unconscionable. Unconscionable for me to have rubbish for longer than I want to have in my back garden. But because they're an important job. And that's the thing. That's why they want to, like, people with cushy jobs who can't go on strike because it's useless for them to go on strike, because if they didn't do the job, nothing would change, want people who actually do important jobs to think that it's unconscionable to go on strike because they do something important. And there's like, I do this all the time. David Graeber, bullshit jobs. Read it. Just read it. You will understand a lot more.
Yeah, go on, Stuart.
Yeah, I've seen the post, and I kind of, like, I'm seeing this from a bit of a different angle, because sometimes we do get preachy and say, look, just join a union. And then, and people aren't really educated on why, but I can sense the anger of why, people are saying, what are the unions doing? Why aren't they, having any success? And I think you've got to recognise that anger and that attitude is actually something useful to the union. If we can reach out to these people and say, look, we want to take what you've got and your drive, and you want to, change this, clearly awful situation, and we want to put the tools in your hands to get change. That's something we can use. I think it's important that we don't just look at these situations as, an attack on trade unionism, because I don't think it is. I think it's a useful opportunity, because not everybody in a trade union is going to be a socialist in today's day and age. Some people are there for cheap car insurance, and that's what they want. Other people are there to change the world. And I think when opportunities like this present themselves, you've got to really, cling on to it. I mean, you don't know what industrial branch or what sector they're in. You won't really see like many manufacturing branches being very supportive of things like universal credit if that industrial sector is particularly well paid, because that's not something that they're fighting for. They're showing solidarity to us, and they're supporting us with financing and stuff. But you often won't find that there's much crossover with some of the activism that goes on. So I think we need to recognise the opportunity, when people get really angry over nurses getting a slap in the face rather than an actual pay rise.
Michael's got a really good comment there. He said, what tools can you put in our hands, Stuart? And why haven't they been put in the hands of the people that are shop stewards now? So that goes back to a little bit of what I was saying before about the changing of the laws. So there are all sorts of laws that mean that if you ballot for strike action, there has to be a certain time period. Your employer can come back and do all sorts of things. Basically, the ball is in the employer's court for any kind of industrial action.
I think though,
and it takes a long time.
Not just I to support what you're saying, Paul, as well. But I think the one thing that we're forgetting about in the conversation about trade unions and how can a trade union act, and often I've been guilty of this before, and I've had conversations, and I've got a really good friend from Liverpool that I met through Twitter, who was a massive trade unionist, really high up in one of the trade unions, and having this kind of debate before, and he had said to me, and this is something I've carried with me for a long time since, is that a trade union is only as powerful as the members want it to be. And he'd say to me, it's all good and well expecting the trade union to do something, but who are you expecting that from? You're expecting it from yourself. If you want your trade union to be powerful, make it powerful. Do you go to meetings? Do you go to your branch meetings? Do you make sure that everybody is active? If you want to gain something from your workplace, if you want to gain something for yourself, it is about the collective, but it's about making sure that you all go there. Nobody else is going to do it for you. And this is, something I bring, that we have been talking about in the political education stuff, Paul, as well, is that, nobody's going to do it for us. There isn't a magical leader of the trade union who's going to come in and go, right, I'm going to do this for you, and I'm going to make sure that, your working conditions are great and your pay is amazing and, all this stuff. If you're frustrated by something, go to your branch and make sure you get everybody else frustrated about it as well, and bring another 10 people from your workplace as well and say, look, if we all come here, we can all actually make this change, and make sure that we're talking about it and encouraging people to do that, because the employer isn't going to make those changes for you. He isn't going to come in and go, oh, by the way, I'm going to give you all an extra £5 an hour this week. Isn't this amazing? Because you're all in your trade union. Is he hell? We've all got to go there and be like, right, I'm here. This is what we're going to do. We're going to organize. We're going to get ourselves together. We're all going to campaign on this thing. And I think that's where a lot of the conversation's been lost. That's where a lot of the discussion about trade unions has been lost, that it's not necessarily, people think of it as somebody else's responsibility when really the power is actually in our hands. And I think that's something that we didn't maybe take enough from what Jeremy Corbyn was trying to say whenever, when he I think it was at Glastonbury, wasn't it, when he recited the Mask of Anarchy. We are the people. If we just shake off those chains and do the things that we know is in our power. We can actually do this. And I think we've just got to ignite that flame again in people and make people realize that, you know, yeah, the unions need reformed. They are the big boys club and everybody gets this and that, you know, jobs or whatever. But the union itself and what it does is about the people that are in the union. We are the union.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Stuart.
Yeah, and I know Michael said like what have the unions done, and like Unite Community, you know, fighting for community type things. We got success, and what it took was, you know, a handful of people coming together with that same anger and passion and want to change something. And if you remember the plates that went out on MPs' offices, and it got them to get those meals for those kids, to feed those kids, that came from my branch. That was people I was with, you know. And honestly, a lot of them wouldn't take credit for it. You know, they did it under the cover of darkness, right? Because of what was going on in the world. But they wanted to see the world changed, and they did a little bit, and they'll keep doing it. It'll take a while, but we'll get there.
Do you have anything to say on this, John?
Sorry?
Do you have anything to add?
I'm just enjoying listening to the comments, Sam. I mean, I do have two comments about unions. But sort of, and the first one is about strikes. That there is no point in striking if it's not going to affect anybody. And one of the sticks they used to beat strikers with is, look at the damage you're doing. Sort of, absolutely. There's sort of, unless you're doing damage, who's going to listen to you? And that's why a bin man strike, is it bin person? A bin strike is
refuse collector.
So much more powerful than a banking strike. Sorry to say, what did you say, Sam?
Refuse collector. You should know this, John.
Refuse collector strike is. I was talking to the chap in charge of the bin collections the other day, and I was talking about bin men, and he never corrected me once, so I sort of tell him off about that. So but the second thing I've got to say about it is that be very careful before you go on strike, because all it achieves for the strikers very often is they take themselves and their families to poverty. And even if you win on the principle, and you get but the damage you've done to self in achieving
that's just counterintuitive.
Pay and things like that is very often huge. So you really need to decide. So that when somebody goes on strike, it's not a foolish thing done lightly. It's a very, very selfless act. In order to achieve a greater good at the end of it. Those are the only two comments I got to make about a strike.
The thing is, though, about being careful there as well, though. But we are infinitely careful. I've been on strike twice. I've worked to rule for years, but I've worked to rule within a workplace for years, and it's been terribly detrimental to my career as a trade union representative, as the person who is seen as the figurehead of that. But, what's the alternative? If, there were literally people dying in my workplace because of the pressure they were under, because they were taking their own life. Someone took, that this is real, this is serious. And what we need to do is to understand that this is not a joke. We don't do it because we want a day off and we think it's hilarious. No one would get a strike if they thought it was hilarious and they just thought, oh yeah, we're going to just go on strike for a day. It's really funny. These are serious things. This is like a totally broken staff, who were crying every single day. You go in the staff room and there's this bleak thing, and they've got to go out and face some children while they're while they're absolutely devastated about what's going on in their lives. People don't do that. So what we should be doing as the public, we should just totally change the conversation around it and be like, if someone goes on strike, I automatically support you because you have jumped through the numerous legal hoops, which are incredibly difficult to get through, include complete gaslighting. And then some people saying, we called off 3 strikes because the person said, yes, I will accept all your demands. And then the next day when we went on strike, they said, no, we won't. I'm going to go back to normal now. because you haven't gone on strike. So we had to go 12 weeks after. We had to reballot and do it again. The system is against people who want to go on strike. If you manage to go on strike, that's a failure of management. It's not a failure of the people. It's not a failure of the people who work in a place. This really, really frustrates me. So I would offer automatic solidarity to anyone who goes on strike, because that is a workplace. That is 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 people amongst thousands of people who are failing that workplace, who are doing a really bad job, who are not looking after the people. That is who we're going after. We're not going after anyone else. So when the teachers go on strike, that's the government failing the teachers. When the nurses go on strike, and they're probably going to have to, I'll fully support them, because the government have failed them. Their employers have failed them. They go into food banks. They've saved people's lives. They've had this awful time through a pandemic. Look at the photos of them with marks all over their faces from the masks all day. Things like that. And the horrible, horrendous situation. And the number of them who have died. And we are not going to support them, are we not? Well, we'll clap on a doorstep because that's easy.
But all it's going to take is one Daily Mail article that says, my Nana died because nurses were on strike. And next thing, it's the divide and rule thing. And this is the issue that we've got. It's not necessarily that people don't support strikes. It's just that we are so divided as a class where everybody is pitted against each other. So, for example, as you know, Paul, school teachers go on strike. Oh, they get 6 weeks holiday. They finish work at 3 o'clock. They get their weekends. Everybody thinks about the conditions that they're in, which are really bad. So instead of looking at above at who's creating those circumstances and who's making, employment really bad, they look at the person beside them. Sure, you get 6 weeks holiday. What are you talking about in the summer? Sure, you just sit about and do nothing, and then they'll look at the nurses or they'll look at, whoever else. And it's all about divide and rule, and this is the issue that, and yet I come back to the same thing where I come back to the Labour Party. And I come back to, well, what are they trying to do to support the people who, we are the party of the ordinary, person, the workers, whoever that may be. So come back to the interview, with John Ashworth and Andrew Marr on Sunday. And it was like, well, you support the nurses on strike. And it was like, oh, nurses don't want to go on strike. Well, nobody wants to go on strike. But he just wouldn't categorically say, yes, when those people are pushed to the point where they feel they have to walk away, where they have to down tools and walk away and say, we are going on strike, he couldn't actually say, I will do that. That is a massive letdown. And that then leads to the public thinking, well, why aren't the Labour Party going to support the nurses on strike? And it puts that element of doubt. So then whenever you have the media that comes in with all those layers of selfish nurses, selfish this, selfish that, selfish teachers, it just reaffirms, that they shouldn't be doing that. And this is the issue that we have. And this is why we need to make sure that we have an opposition, a Labour Party that is actually for the ordinary people, to defend us against the establishment who will do everything they can to make sure that, we are oppressed.
I believe that's why we're back at school as well. I believe that's why schools are open now, because the Labour Party failed to oppose. It's clearly not safe. Look at a graph. What happens when schools are open? Coronavirus cases rise. What happens when schools were partially closed? They plummeted. Now we're open again. It's not safe. I'm doing coronavirus tests all the time, and I'm like, well, there's one of my...
What, your lateral flow ones?
Lateral flow ones, 60% chance of getting if I'm positive. It's ridiculous. So you're scraping the back of your tonsils all the time, and
you got them.
And it's just this absolute messed up situation. And if the Labour Party had just said, hang on, can we not just make it safe? Because clearly partially open schools with 40% people was reducing the rate of infection. So why don't we use other community spaces and stuff? They weren't strong enough on that. They said, oh yeah, we should use other things, but they didn't say they were going to do anything. They didn't really oppose, did they? They supported, or ifs, no buts. Yeah, I don't forgive them for that. I really don't, and I really don't forgive Kate Green for what she said to NASUWT teachers. She told us what teachers thought. She was sitting in a room full of teachers, a virtual room full of teachers, and says, well, the teachers I've spoken to have said that. Why don't you speak to the teachers in the room who are saying it's not safe? Well, actually, I'm going to dismiss your opinion because I've already got an opinion that I want. What's
Or
the
she's
point?
got the top line from the party that's telling her to say a certain thing because, oh no, they could not be listening to the unions. The party of the unions didn't want to be seen to be listening to the unions. Wow. Looking glass, we're through it. You
Right.
know, it's...
Need to bring Stuart in. He's been trying to talk for ages.
Yeah. Just as kind of a brainwave, we've all been talking about strikes a lot, and we don't really communicate the idea of escalation very well. You know, when stuff gets in the newspapers and on the internet, it's at the very end of a very long process. And we need to get better at, you know, giving the narrative and building our story and explaining how we got to a strike situation so that, you know, people are on our sides because they feel a part of that journey. We need to get better at that.
All right, I'm going to run through some of the comments, some of the best comments that made me laugh during the show, and then we'll wind up. Mark, no, not Mark. Jake says if Paul lets that fringe grow anymore, he'll have to be a Gabrielle tribute act. He's grown a long way, this Paul. He started off as a Lego man, and now he's a Gabrielle tribute act. Not a funny one. Leanne said solidarity with Karen, who's been fined £10,000 for safely protesting. I'm sure we all agree with that. That's just a ridiculous fine. I understand if you know, I don't want to get into this fining protesters. Obviously, I don't want to fine protesters, but you might have to fine people for breaking coronavirus rules, but not £10,000.
Is it just worth raising the point, though, that the crowdfund raised that money? So ordinary people raised the money within one evening to pay for that. So, you know, big up the people for doing that.
But it's always ordinary people, Tina.
Yeah.
It's us paying for the food banks to put sort of basically the Tories have worked a flanker whereby they're taking the taxes off us, they're not producing the services, and we're going in our pockets. The ordinary British people going in their own pockets to sort of make good the massive and criminal lapses in the welfare state which have appeared in the last 10 years under the Tory government.
So you mean to tell me that Priti Patel didn't write out that 10 grand check? There was me thinking that she'd done something good.
I mean, really, it's just everything. It comes, they get away with everything, and it's just absolutely outrageous. Sorry.
All right. Tim says, shout out for Acorn the Union. I am a member of Acorn the Union. I sent Acorn the Union a message asking them if they'd give me any money for my campaign, and they said no, but I'm not going to hold that against them.
To be fair, they need it for their work. You know, they're not a rich union. They're not a rich union yet.
I'm not a rich person.
Maybe when they become Oak the Union.
Boom, boom. He says, get Neve on. Get Neve on, Political Muted. Yeah?
We love Neve. Neve's got an open invite.
She's got an open invite. There you go. She spoke very well on the Women's Banner Group session she was on the other night for International Women's Day. Go and check that out. We did 3 really good panels. Women in politics, women in trade unions, and women in the community, where we shockingly gave women a microphone and let them speak in their own words. I know, it's revolutionary. Carl says, don't forget the 1.3 million people on low wages who are now going to be pushed into income tax over the next 3 years. Very good point. You know, this whole thing about freezing the personal allowance for tax.
Yet again, same story.
Yeah.
Although I would just rather people be paid more and pushed into paying tax. And paying tax, just pay people more, just pay people a proper rate, and then really, really tax the people who tax the money that isn't needed, tax that out of the system. But I think paying tax shouldn't be a thing that's like seen as a negative, as long as people are being paid enough to do it. I don't resent anything that comes out of my tax. Like nothing at all. It's difficult,
Laura
but
says
it's what's fun.
On the show on Thursday, so if you have not met Neve, you can come and have a look on Thursday. She's a fantastic young campaigner from Durham, in Durham. She's not from Durham. It's complicated. Maybe she'll tell you at the time. Jake says, where is the £350 million that we were promised a week after Brexit? That's a really good point. I hope it's dawning on some people that money's never going to arrive. Vonnie says, the airport in Teesside is for North East Tory MPs to fly to London so they don't have to share the train with Labour MPs.
What's left of the Labour MPs?
What's left of the Labour MPs, indeed.
Someone else commented that it was more just like the normal people. They want to be on planes and also get out of the northeast as quickly as possible because they live in London, because we know this from their Tinder profiles. Not that I have one, but someone told me that they saw Dehenna on there.
Oh my God.
You're in trouble with Laura.
It wasn't me. She knows about it. It was Sam. Sorry, Sam.
I'm not on Tinder, just before anybody looks. Don't get too excited. Yeah, Leanne said, can we have a moment's silence for the departure of Piers Morgan from GMTV?
Can we clap? Can we just clap?
Yeah, it always messes my head up because they call it GMB, don't they? And then I thought, oh, what are they doing now? But there's two GMBs, as one's a TV program and one's a union with an orange.
And they're both as bad as each other. I didn't say that.
Yes. Leanne said Facebook's had gremlins all day. They kicked her out of an emergency meeting to support Karen the nurse. And she missed Michael Rose.
At least she's taken back Karen. At least she's taken back Karen. Yeah. You know, like a Karen used to be a bad thing, and now we're all supportive of Karens again.
Karen.
It's great. Reclaim the name.
Let me just have a quick look at the last ones that have come up. Yeah. How do we push through when we've got right-wing media that only toes the conservative and neoliberal line? That is just such a huge question, isn't it?
Become a member of Socialist Think Tank, which is free, but you can donate if you want because it costs us loads. But if you want to, if you can afford it, but it doesn't mean you get any special privileges for donating. We just our gratitude, but we're just as grateful for any members. So you can sign up as a member of Socialist Think Tank, and that will help over time because we are getting some really good messages out. So that's one way you can do it.
Isn't that a very socialist thing to do? That you give according to your ability and you take according to your need. That's how it should be. Good for you.
And you can also buy some badges and stuff. Did you
badges?
See that?
Did you see my badge? Have you shown them my badge?
Maybe someone will drop the pictures in the chat.
It's
hand,
already a badge in a hand. They made a badge of me, Tina. Made a badge of me.
I've seen it.
So if you're jealous jealous that there's a WhatsApp insider, there's a WhatsApp insider group for Socialist Think Tank members where you get to hear about behind the scenes things like Paul being headbutted during the Women's Banner group talk the other day while I was doing tech support. You know, that's the kind of insight that we can give you what goes on behind the scenes when my son literally headbutted a monitor out of my ear and the sound went off because I was so headbutted so hard. So yeah, these are the kind of things you could find out as a member.
There we go.
I think, Paul, your wife is asking you to do the money ad. Have you got a formal money appeal that you need to give?
I think I just did it because we're not after money. If you can afford to give us something, that would be really nice.
They'll take beer if you want to send beer. They'll happily take that as well. Apparently,
we'll take. We are going to have our own beer at some point as well.
I know.
Looking forward to that one. So excited.
Mic drop.
Yeah. Oh, the WhatsApp group, Leanne. You just will. I'm sure someone will send you the link. It's on there. It's on the members area. Like I think it comes out in the email when you. But yeah, we'll make sure that you're in. Just drop us a message.
Right then, we are going to bring this to a close. I am so tired. And I still haven't locked the chickens up. So I'm going to go down to the allotments and hopefully not get murdered. And
if you don't come back again, we know that's happened.
Yeah, this may be the last time you see me alive. So
And
Like a
Willis is
princess
saying,
in-
and Willis is saying £10 to give me a skinhead. I would be totally averse to that. So if you can raise loads of money, in order to give me a skinhead, it's not like I've already done that before.
Right then,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. And thank you, Tina, for your contribution today. So brilliant. Thank you.
Oh,
God.
thanks for having me. I'll come on and rant anytime you want.
Dream team and sort of enhanced it today. God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Paul.
Keep the red flag flying there.